So did you start school yet, Adam?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Actually, that's right. It is tomorrow. You excited?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, first day of school is always pretty, in our house, we call it skited because you're scared and excited. It's kind of a little bit of both. But it should be fun.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we're live on YouTube.
Okay,
All right.
I'm going to call the August 12th meeting of the Lafayette City Council to order. Let the record reflect that all council members except for Councilmember Burks are attendance with the teleconference. Councilmember Burks is excused absent from this meeting. That brings us to adoption of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda from council members? Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
I
Do I
second.
have a second? Excellent. Okay, we'll do a voice vote. Vice Mayor Candell,
Aye.
Councilmember Bliss,
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer,
Aye.
and I'm a yes. So the agenda is adopted as posted. And that brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight we are honored to have Adam Dolberg lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And Adam, I think what's going to happen, we have the flag come up. There it is. So whenever you are ready, let's go.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the
To the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
and
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Adam. That was
Thank you,
well
Adam.
done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe you'll be coming back later on the agenda for your item. So we'll see you
Thank you.
then. Okay. All right, this is an opportunity for public comments on items that are not on our agenda. Oh, no, excuse me. Public comments that are on the closed session item on our agenda. So we have two closed session items that are listed. And this is an opportunity to give a public comment on either of those closed session items. So Jeff, do we have any requests to speak from the public?
Yes, we do, Mayor Anderson. First off, I'll just remind folks that if they do want to share public comment about something in the closed session, that they could use the raise hand function, or if they're dialing in, *9. So with that, we have Elliot Hudson, who will be joining the meeting now.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Hudson, you're in the meeting, so please unmute yourself and start your video if you'd like.
I'm Elliot.
Mr. Hudson, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I'm Elliot Hudson, 109 Bacon Court, Lafayette. I am commenting because I have read public comments and I watched part of the meeting last week when there were comments about the recent litigation in which the city's violation of the Brown Act about public notice of meetings were discussed. I am dismayed by the position that has been taken by the city and officials in public statements, suggesting that with respect to public notice, that the city did nothing wrong and that the residents who brought the lawsuit were to blame for the city spending $936,000 on that litigation. That position is wrong on both counts, and it is a disservice to this community for the city to take those positions. The critical legal issue in that case was whether the city had given the proper notice required by law about the meetings that it was going to have. That issue is critically important, not just for that one meeting, but for the city's entire conduct in giving notice of similar meetings. It's important to every single resident of this city. On that point, the city lost. The California Court of Appeal ruled that the city had violated the Brown Act. and said, quote, "The statutory scheme does not allow an agency to thwart its duty of public disclosure in this manner." I'm upset about that litigation too, but for a different reason. The city never should have been put in a position to be sued, and it never should have spent that much money on the litigation over a point of whether it was giving proper legal notice. The city was not defending itself against a $100 million lawsuit. Yet what it did was it went out and it hired one of the most expensive law firms in the state of California that doesn't even specialize in this area of law to defend that case. And that's why it cost $936,000. So if you want to look at where to blame and where to review whether the city acted properly and should act differently, I suggest you look closer to home. I suggest you look at the attorney who said the notice was proper when it was not, as confirmed by the California Court of Appeal. I suggest that you look at where you had the advice, failed to have the advice, that you could simply renotice the meeting properly and avoid the entire litigation. And I suggest you look at the people who hired that law firm that had no business in this lawsuit with what it charges to hire the city over a point of law where residents were forced to sue in order to have proper public notice. That's the reality. What the city has put out pretending that it was exonerated is false. What the city has put out blaming the residents who brought that lawsuit in order to vindicate the rights of every resident of this city and who proved that the city had failed to act properly, for the city to blame those people is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the speaker?
No, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Any other public comments?
Yes, Mayor Anderson. Jeremy Levine would like to join the meeting now.
So if I could just ask Mala for a point of clarification, the agenda list, this is public comment on closed session items only.
That is correct. So I think we just want to be clear if the next speaker is speaking to a generic public comment, which would then occur at 7 o'clock versus the 2 closed session items that are listed on the agenda. If it's not related to the 2 closed session items, I would suggest the speaker rejoin the meeting at 7 o'clock to speak at that public comment portion of the meeting.
Okay.
Good afternoon. You may well hear from me later in the meeting as well, but I just wanted to say now, from this citizen's perspective, it seems like what would save the city the most money is if its own citizens stopped suing it over illegitimate reasons, and that the city has to defend itself. So thank you for defending the city's decisions. And yes, maybe the city could have found a less expensive lawyer. It could have not been sued in the first place too, and that would have been good. So just so the council hears from citizens who think it would be good to have the city not get sued, that's my opinion here. And I am finished with my public comment. Thanks for hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Levine. Any questions for the speaker? All right, thank you very much. Any other public comments on items or closed session items?
Oh, Mayor Anderson, nope, no public comment at this time.
Okay. All right, with that, then we will go into closed session. And we intend on getting back in open session at 7 o'clock. So we'll now move to our closed session.
And I'll just remind folks that we all keep the transmission going on YouTube. You can sit through that for the next hour. If the closed session goes a little bit over that, I'll be making announcements to let you know, but we do expect to return at 7 o'clock. So stand by. Thanks. So you're attending the Lafayette City Council meeting or watching on YouTube. They are in closed session. We expect them to return to the open session at 7 o'clock. If that schedule changes, I'll let you know. In the meantime, stand by. The City Council is in closed session. Thanks. So you're watching the Lafayette City Council meeting. They're in closed session right now. We expect them to return to open session about 7 o'clock. If that schedule changes, I'll let you know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here at 7. Just note to everyone who's watching and to our council members, we are going to be starting at 7 o'clock. However, I'm not going to turn the videos on until right before 7, just so we aren't sitting there just staring into the video camera. So we will be beginning the open session of the city council meeting at 7 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. See you then. Okay, just a reminder, we will be starting at 7 o'clock. I'm going to leave the videos off just until we start the meeting at 7 or right before. So stand by, and we will be starting the open session of the meeting at 7 o'clock. Thanks. It's about 3 minutes to 7. So I just want to make sure that everybody's in. And so far we have Susan Candell is in, City Clerk Joanne Robbins, Teresa Geringer, and City Manager Narup Shervatza. Mike Anderson's joining us now.
Hey, it says that I can't start my video.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, you know, Susan, you and I offline need to check because there's also something funny happening. When you join, you actually come right into the meeting and not through the attendees section.
Right.
And for some reason, it also seems to it makes you think that you're still out as an attendee, but you're actually in the meeting. So we should figure out what the little glitch there is.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
You got it. Okay, let me see. Stephen Bliss, I believe, we're waiting for. Joanne, just to check, Cam is not going to be able to make this the open session either. Okay. All right, so we're just waiting on Stephen Bliss. And there's some hands raised. I'm going to lower all the hands until we do ask for public comment. Just so stand by, and when we do ask for public comment, go ahead and raise your hand at that point. Okay, there is, I think I see what's happening. Okay, we'll figure it out. All right, let me just start things up, and well, let's wait till we still have 2 minutes. Let's just make sure we start on
Yeah,
time.
there's still a little bit of time.
Okay. T-minus 1 minute. Okay, Mayor Anderson, it's about as close to 7 p.m. as it's going to get. It's all yours.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, we're out of closed session and we have no action to report from our closed session that we just completed. That brings us to public comments. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on an item that is not on our agenda, but within the purview of the city of Lafayette. So if you're interested in commenting, this would be that time to do it. Jeff, folks that are interested should raise their hand, I take it.
That's correct. You can use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. And if you are on a telephone, use *9. All right, Mayor Anderson, we have 5 public hands raised for public comment. The first person joining the meeting will be Laurel Stanley.
Okay.
Okay, Laurel, you're in the meeting, so go ahead. Hit the wrong button there. Okay, Laurel Stanley, you're in the meeting, and please go ahead and start. You can turn on your video. You are unmuted. Okay, why don't we come back to Laurel? We'll put her back as an attendee, and she can join us in a sec.
Okay.
Okay, next we have Tobias Bodine, followed by Jeremy Levine, Zena Potosh, and a telephone number ending in 536. So Tobias Bodine will be joining us now.
Good evening.
Good evening. It's good to see you again. It was just yesterday, right? Technically speaking. My name is Tobias Bodine, and I live in the Lafayette Orchards neighborhood. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I have been working with children for many, many years. 3 principles that we teachers try to instill with our young students are sharing, respect, and telling the truth. And the other night, the City Council conducted a meeting to discuss the terraces project that would bring 315 units of multifamily housing to our city. I respect the council's decision to allow the public to share their thoughts, feelings, and more importantly, facts about the project. And I also respect the council's decision to stop public comment on the project. I will not comment here on the merits of the project itself. Rather, I would like to talk about the behavior of a member of your body, Cam Burks, in regards to the other two principles I mentioned earlier, respect and truth-telling. Councilman Burke's caustic and confrontational behavior towards professionals trying to give the best information they could was a poor example of what respect looks and sounds like. He claimed that their work was third-grade modeling, while continuously interrupting them while they tried to respond to his litany of criticisms. He also attempted to pressure the developer to reveal confidential information and would not stop until Mayor Anderson successfully redirected him. This is not the first time Councilman Burks has resorted to bullying and name-calling when he doesn't get his way, as I have observed in other public meetings. Though this sort of disrespectful behavior seems acceptable to, say, some supporters of President Trump, it does not represent the values that we residents of Lafayette expect from a public official. Though Councilman Burks read a prepared statement at the beginning of the meeting that he would be unbiased, it is clear if you go back and watch the YouTube video of the other night's meeting that he was not truth-telling. He is clearly biased against the project. He disrespects the thorough and diligent work of our planning department and the planning commission. And in trying to distance himself from the young folks of Inclusive Lafayette, he disrespects the racial and socioeconomic equity work that these courageous young community members have embarked on to change the narrative of our privileged citizenry. Reading a boilerplate statement about being unbiased does not replace the truth of one's real actions. Our city council, city staff, hired consultants, and the public deserve better than a public official who shows deeper disrespect to others that he might not agree with. I fear that our community, already traumatized by 9 years of infighting over the terraces project, will become further divided by Mr. Burks' pattern of behavior as he seeks re-election. Finally, I want to say that we, the citizens of Lafayette, will surely miss the steady hand that currently guides the rudder of our city council, you, Mayor Anderson. My hope is that you will stay involved in our community to mentor and guide the next generation as it moves forward into the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bodine. Are there any questions for the speaker?
I just, real quick. Cam, who was supposed to be here today, but he has an emergency. And so he's not here to get your comments. And they're important. He's a really, reasonable person. And so I'll make sure that we get your comments to him. And so he can listen to them himself.
Thank you, Councilmember Kendall. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bodine. Next public comment.
Okay, Mayor Anderson, coming up next is Jeremy Levine, followed by Zena Potosh, and telephone number 536. So here comes Jeremy Levine now. Hey, Jeremy Levine, you're in the meeting. Go ahead.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
You'd be hearing from me twice. I'm here to talk about the August 24th terraces meeting. I think that I don't know what the laws are that are the options available to the council, but I think that extending public comment exclusively for those who didn't get to speak in the August 10th meeting would be very valuable if that's possible, to limit public comment to exclusively that group, those who did not get to speak. Otherwise, we're in for 12-hour meeting, part two. So just one, I think that would, if it's an option, would be really great. If it's not an option, then I think that public comment will derail the meeting again and prevent it from going to a vote. And I think, and really, I mean, going to a vote is one thing. The council members having time to discuss among themselves and debate and talk about the law and the evidence from the city and evidence from the community. I want to hear that debate in full. It was a little tough sometimes listening to the questions that council members were asking. I would like to second Tobias's comments about Councilmember Burks being aggressive and disrespectful in this particular time of uncertainty in the world. We benefit a lot from civil, respectful, calm leadership. Donald Trump does all of the, being aggressive and angry that anybody needs in government at all levels. And I think that, and actually a lot more than anybody needs. And so having none of that within our government, I think would be very meaningful for the community. But the most important thing I'd like to emphasize is that I think that making sure everyone who wanted to speak, regardless of I know people on both sides who just had to go to bed at 12:30 or 1 or something, but who are still in the queue, but just didn't get to speak. I think that making sure everybody who wanted to have their voices heard has the option would be good. Not if it means that people like me have to go through the process of speaking again or get the process. That's a waste of everyone's time. So I don't know what the legal options are that are available to everyone, but I think that giving people who didn't get to speak at the August 10th meeting a chance on the August 24th meeting would be very meaningful for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Levine. Any questions for the speaker? Vice Mayor Kendall.
Yeah, just to follow up from Tobias's comments, we will try to get this message to Cam because he's not here to hear him himself. So
you'll all receive an email from me to the same effect, but
okay.
Thank you. And it will be a longer email too, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions for the speaker? All right, Mr. Levine, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Anderson, we have Zena Potosh, followed by a telephone number ending in 536.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you for giving me 3 minutes to speak. My name is Zena Potosh and I reside at 1269 Laurel Lane. I'm a physician and a psychiatrist and work in the community. My office is actually directly across the road from the Lafayette tennis court. So I was impacted by the fire on October the 27th, 2019. My concern about the terraces is that it directly impacts the students at Akilani's high school. The students, as we all know, are our main assets. Many people move to Lafayette because of the quality and the academic reputation of the Akilani school district. There are many potential hazards raised by the proposed project. The first one, of course, is the fire. It would be unfeasible to assume that it's possible to evacuate 1,400 students and staff in the event of a wildfire. On that Sunday, October 27th, 2019, the school was not in session, yet the freeways were backed up. Access, egress on Pleasant Hill Road was greatly diminished. The traffic was stalled. During school hours, it will be very difficult for buses to get there in a timely manner. And with the parking lot full, it will be very hard to gain access and get the students evacuated. Putting more traffic in a large development directly opposite the school will increase the area that is already impacted, and this would be increasingly hazardous and dangerous. In terms of the second hazard, it's traffic. As we all know, the traffic can really be dangerous at the Pleasant Hill and Stanley Road intersection. Adding 315 apartments directly opposite the school with an estimated 500 more cars greatly increases traffic risks. This poses far more risk for life and limb of the students and other pedestrians. And the increase in the cars and traffic is going to increase this hazard. And the third one is air pollution. As you have in your general plan on your website, the school is actually in a basin. And so the air is trapped in cold days with the cold inversion, the pollution will sit directly at the school. And the main cause of cancer, respiratory illnesses, asthma, lung cancer is all related to air pollution that's directly related to traffic. And then again, added to this in our particular community will be the diesel trucks that will be hauling away soil. Looks like that's going to take a good year and a half or 5 to 6 days a week. And all the pollutants that are in that soil that's going to be moved is going to add to the gravity of the situation. The wind predominantly is on the western, blowing straight towards the school. One way of getting air is around the school, keeping trees that can clear the air, and hopefully removing any more trees, we can mitigate that factor. And then removing the outside will definitely impact.
Ms. Potash, I need you to wrap up your comments. Your 3 minutes is ending.
Okay, so again, I think, thank you. And in terms of the concerns of these 3 hazards, I think that we do require a supplemental EIR. And also, I think because of these hazards, the HAA should not be a factor in the council's decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Are there any questions for the speaker? Ms. Potash, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate that. Next public speaker.
Okay, Mayor Anderson, we have a speaker whose telephone ends in 536, and they will be joining the meeting now. Go ahead, caller with telephone number ending in 536. Please unmute yourself. Okay, I'm trying to, there you go.
Hello.
Hello, you're live.
I'm having technology problems, and I just got my laptop to work. I've been on my telephone, so I'll just keep on my phone. If you can hear me okay, I'll do it on my phone.
We can hear you just fine.
Thank you. Okay, this is Laurel Stanley. I live at 1273 Laura Lane, and the comments I want to make have to do with the California Permit Streamlining Act and its relevance to the so-called resumed terraces project. I'd hoped to speak at the hearing on Monday night, but I still hadn't been called by 12:30 a.m., so I had to call it a night and gave up. So here I am tonight. The PSA, which is Government Code Section 65920 at SEC, was enacted specifically to impose strict time limits for local governments to act on development projects. Per the PSA, once a development project application is filed with the public agency has 30 days to inform the applicant whether or not the application is complete. And once the application is determined to be complete, the public agency commences CEQA review, and the certification of the CEQA document begins a 180-day time period for the public agency to approve or deny the project. With the terraces, the project application was filed for the first time on March 2011 and deemed complete in July that year. The EIR for the terraces project was certified on August 12, 2013, and the PSA states that, other than one single 90-day extension, which the applicant did not request, by the way, no extension, continuance, or waiver of these time limits, either by the project applicant or the lead agency, shall be permitted. Thus, the substantial completion determination of the original submission expired on or around April 27, 2014, which was 180 days after the EIR was certified. However, as you know, just a few days before the 180 days were to expire, the applicant withdrew the application. Then in 2018, the applicant attempted to resume the original application. This was 9 years after it was first submitted to the city for processing. Such a delay of time, for whatever reason, is clearly in violation of the PSA. Even though the application was withdrawn before the 180 days expired, the period continued to run and expired nonetheless. Nothing in the PSA even comes close to allowing its time limit to exceed 9 years. Although there's no mechanism to legally resume an old application, it was resubmitted in 2018 by the applicant. This was well after the 2015 general plan and the 2018 zoning amendments were in place for the Deer Hill property, which is R65. The Deer Hill site was and still is designated low-density, single-family residential. A general plan amendment to allow the apartments will be required in order for the project to comply with the general plan and zoning designation. Nothing in the staff report seemed to consider the violation of the PSA and assumed without discussion somehow that the 2011 deemed complete determination and the 2013 EIR certification somehow remains operative now over 9 years later. That conclusion is clearly incorrect. State Lafayette has written to the city 3 letters.
Ms. Stanley,
August
your time is
2019.
up, so I need you to wrap up.
I will wrap up right now. You've got 2 attorneys, you've got Mala Subramanian, and you've got your special counsel. They should advise you on this. Please reread Save Lafayette's letters and seek the advice of your own attorneys. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Stanley. Appreciate your time. Let's see if there's any questions. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much. We appreciate your comment.
You're welcome.
Mayor Anderson, we have one more, at least at this point, one more public speaker, and that's Scott Summer, who will be joining us now. If anyone does wish to speak, use the raise hand function or *9. Okay, Mr. Summer, you're on, so please begin.
How about now? Does this work?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Scott Summer, 832 Las Trampas. I'm calling in because I wanted to address the question at the end of the meeting Monday night about whether there should be public comment or not, just like that other speaker. The answer to the question is in the Brown Act at Government Code 54954.3a. That's 54954.3a. Every agenda for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any item of interest to the public before or during the legislative body's consideration of the item, et cetera, within its subject matter and so forth. The only exception has to do with committee proceedings where they've had that opportunity for the public to speak at the committee level, and they don't have to do it again. But there's no equivalent one for a continuing or a new city council one. So if you have an agenda for a regular meeting on the 24th, I think this section requires there be public comment. However, I don't think anyone wants a repeat of the marathon the other night, especially you. So I'd like to suggest that even though it may have to have a public comment, under B, you can adopt reasonable regulations. I think you could should consider inviting the public. Please don't speak again. Please don't repeat what you did Monday night. We want to get on to a decision, pro or con, whatever it may be. So I'm trying to be helpful, but I think the proper course is to have the public comment, but encourage people as strongly as you can to not repeat themselves and not go over this again. And Mayor Anderson, as you know, often the director of the public hearing invites people to just incorporate previous comments. They don't have to repeat them again and again. So I think that's the situation you have. And if there's no new staff report or no new reports or memos from consultants from either side, I think there'd be very little for anyone else to address. So I'm hopeful you would get through that process quickly. That's the main reason I called in, was to provide the answer that you were kicking around Monday night at the very end when people were tired. The other thing I would add about the 5th meeting, which very little was said the other night, the 5th meeting rule is not just 5 meetings. It's if the project complies with applicable objective general plan and zoning standards in effect at the time the application was deemed complete. Here you have a memo from 2013, I believe, from staff detailing 19 non-compliance items. Even now your staff is saying that we can't make the findings. So I think technically you're not really under the 5 meeting rule. And unfortunately, since there's no legislative act involved here, the appeal that you have now counts as separate meetings. But even though I think that you're probably outside that 5 meeting rule, I would still encourage you and decide this, because you don't want to give Mr. Winter another argument point, but I do think you should understand the situation. So I hope that's helpful to you, and thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Summer, thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Summer. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Good night.
Next public comment.
There's no more public comment at this time, Mayor Anderson.
Okay. With that, then we will move on to our presentation from the Creeks Committee, the annual update.
All right, it's going to take a second for us to move them all in, but please stand by.
Okay.
Okay, I believe that's it. Matt, if there's anyone else on the committee that we missed, if they could raise their hand now, we'll move them on over. If not, it's all yours.
Very good. I can't tell if they're all in because I don't get to see everybody.
All right, well then I will tell you that if you've not joined the meeting as a panelist and you're on the Creeks Committee, raise your hand now, use the raise your hand function, and I'll move you over. Okay, I think you're good to go.
All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Matt Luttrup, and I'm the Engineering Services Manager and Staff Liaison to the Creeks Committee. This evening, our Creeks Committee is here to provide you with an update on what they have been able to accomplish in the past year and what they hope to tackle in the coming year. At this time, I'd like to hand the meeting over to the Chair of the Creeks Committee. That would be Will Elder. Thank you.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Will.
All right, cool. Well, it's good to be here. It's slightly different format than in past years, but I'm glad we could make it this year. We've had a pretty active year. Did you get our list of accomplishments and goals for next year?
I did not, so I don't know if I missed something. So
well,
go over them.
I think you can get them. In that case, this is all new to you, and we'll run through them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our accomplishments for the year, and each member of the committee is going to talk for just a minute or so on a project that they were involved with. So I'll start out and talk about that fact that we received 2 grants this year. One was from the Contra Costa County Fish and Wildlife Propagation Fund, and that was $4,000, and that was matching funding for a Rindo eradication project and native plant restoration that is along Lafayette Creek near the gazebo, the end of Golden Gate Way. And that project was also supported by the Walnut Creek Watershed Council with matching funds for that. So actually that counts as 2 there. The other grant we received was from the Lafayette Community Foundation, and that was $1,000 to create interpretive signage that will go in at the First Creek and Golden Gateway Rain Garden project that we received funding from East Bay Regional Parks for several years ago, and you will hear about our progress on that from Austin Payne next. I assume.
Hi there.
These things take a little time. Go ahead, Mr. Payne.
Hey, Will, I'm really sorry, Council. It's good to see you all. I'm unprepared. So, Will, back to you.
Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Jeff because he was kind of the alternate for this one.
Evening, council members. I try to change the name on my screen, but it's me.
It's okay, Carol. We know who you are.
You probably all remember that we got an almost $200,000 grant from East Bay Regional Parks to design and build a rain garden project at the First Street and Golden Gate Way intersection. What we've accomplished to date has been to work with city engineering staff on the project design. It was a little more difficult than we had at first anticipated, and a lot of it has to do with the slope and making it accessible. The other issue is that they kind of go hand in hand. To deal with the slope and the grading, that means there's more work involved. So where we stand at the moment is to look to see how we can build this project and do it within the original budget from East Bay Regional Parks. We have not made much progress on the design since last fall, when the associate engineer that was doing the design work had left the city. And so we would love, and one of our goals in this current fiscal year is to finish this design and get this project built. We had 5 years to do the project. We're about halfway through, so it's getting to be something that really needs more attention in order to make sure we can build this project successfully. The one I'll just continue with, our next item is, which is the creek icon. This was something recommended in the Downtown Creeks plan and is actually part of the rain garden design project. We allocated a budget to do the creek icon. We finished the design. It's currently in fabrication. We actually saw some progress photos of it today. So although it's something that we will erect at the end of the project construction, because we wouldn't want it to get damaged. The other thing about the creek icon is, when we have commented on some development projects that are currently, their applications are being reviewed in the city, we had mentioned we have this design of a creek icon. We would like you to incorporate this in your projects, and we've gotten good reception for that. So that would be a way to build and install more of these creek icons throughout downtown Lafayette. Thank you.
So David,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think you're up next.
Okay, I'm up next. The Downtown Creeks Preservation, Restoration, and Development Plan was adopted by the council on October 23rd of 2017. And since then, we've been working to try to get the contents of Appendix D implemented. And what's in Appendix D, I know Mayor Anderson and Councilmember Burks were both on the council at that time, so this may be a refresher, maybe news. But Appendix D references 2 city documents and 3 sections of the Lafayette Municipal Code that need to be updated or enacted respectively. And we've been working to try to get that accomplished pretty much since the time that the plan was adopted. We do not have that finished for a number of reasons, partially because of staff changes and demands on staff time. Obviously, there's been a lot going on. So thanks to Matt, we're, I think, very close to the final language that's actually going to be in those 5 documents. It's changed over the 3 years for a variety of reasons, but I think we've got the language close, but the implementation is still going to be an issue. And Will is going to talk about how we expect to get that done when he talks about the plan for next year.
In addition to that, the committee members have tracked and commented on various, as Jeff referenced, various downtown redevelopment projects, including 100 Lafayette Circle and 3483 Golden Gate Way. So we've been involved in those projects as well. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, David. So Phil Bradley will talk next a couple minutes, I think, about some of the public community work that we've done this year. Phil, you there? No. There's a nice landscape where Phil is.
Yeah, not a creek.
Yeah. So, well, since he's not saying anything, I'll just go ahead and say that we, well, just a second here. I need to close my door. I don't want you to get my sound. Okay. So yeah, this year we hosted several projects related to the Arundo removal and native plant restoration that we were doing at a couple sites in the city. One of them was at the west end near Village Center along Lafayette Creek, where as part of the Arundo removable project with Walnut Creek Watershed Council, we took out a big stand of Arundo in there. And then with the help of the Resource Conservation District, the Watershed Council, and the city publishing an event for the public, we had a very successful planting event there in, I think it was late November. Yeah, what we have, 30 some people from the public. I think Mayor Anderson was there. Yeah, it was a fun event, and we got a lot done. And at the same time, we did a couple of events with the Girl Scouts at Brook Street Park. And there we also, first of all, we did an event where we removed the Arundo, and the Girl Scouts were really at it and took out the Arundo, a lot of ivy, got a lot of work done. And then back in early December, they came back and replanted native plants on the slope there where the Arundo was. And we got rid of a little bit of more Arundo at the time. So that was our main public outreach that we did this last year.
Hey, Will, I think I've got audio here now. This is Phil. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
you're
Phil.
coming through.
Okay. I was trying to dial in. Anyway, nonetheless. The other thing I'd add about the Girl Scouts participation, this is for the Silver Award, and 3 of them in particular came to us, and they were super diligent in how they followed up and put a plan forward to us, and their participation was just amazing. And they dragged in younger kids, that are just coming up through Girl Scouts. They brought in their families. I mean, it was really it was heartwarming, the way that they dug in. And then so we did the Arundo eradication, and, we had a good turnout. We had 20 people that day and 12 of them. The next time for the planting, they pulled in about 30 Girl Scouts. It was amazing. They baked cookies, the whole thing. It was really a great event. And they were so diligent about it. Like if they stepped on one of the seedlings, it was like, oh my God, like they had just run over someone's dog or something. It was terrific. And then we were planning on this year following them through into the Gold Award, but now we're dealing with a whole bunch of different circumstances. But it was great, and I think it's one of the things that we've committed to. We had a good experience with the Boy Scouts in the past on some of these Creek Committee things. So now we're going to, the Creek Days. So now we're going to kind of get a little healthy competition between the boys and the girls and Stanley and the rest. But it was great. And they wrote us this they came to the next Creek Committee meeting, wrote us the nicest letter. It was Goosebump City. It was fantastic.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Okay, now Ron Heft is going to report out on the our participation with the Watershed Council and the Arundo Eradication Project.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. I will not repeat what has been said. Most of my work has been involved with the Arundo identification and eradication. As such, I attend the Walnut Creek Watershed Council monthly meetings. Our vice chair, Jeff, is frequently there, and Jeff, as a matter of fact, is on the executive committee of that group, which is helpful. And when in the symposium that the Watershed Council had this year, our committee had a booth with information about what Lafayette had done and matters of that sort. The council has formed a subgroup called ART, A-R-R-T, Arundo Removal and Ratification Team. And that is because the Arundo issue is such a point of emphasis. We wanted to identify on that. And it's everyone in various watersheds who want to work on this project. We share information. There's a lot yet not known about the proper way to remove Arundo, herbicides, effectiveness, et cetera, et cetera. So working together on that helps. We've had 3 projects this year. The first 2 have been discussed a bit. I won't repeat Brook Street. I certainly agree with Phil. The Girl Scouts were fabulous. And Will has something to do with West Reach. So let me just talk about the third one, the one underway now, which is the gazebo. I think you probably all know, of course, where it is. It's on the east end of Golden Gate Avenue, right behind our gazebo. It's a different project. It's much larger than what we've done in the past and much more expensive. Fortunately, the money is not coming from us, but essentially from remediation work by the city of Concord that's been funneled on down to us. It's different in a couple of ways. All of the removal, which is just about completed now, is being done professionally, for which will be paid for from those sums. It's different also that we won't have as much volunteer work, if any. I remember seeing Mary Anderson with his hands in the dirt on the other project, and I know Garen was there as well. But 2 things will change volunteer participation this time. One is the ruggedness of the terrain. And the second, of course, is Arundo, which changes everything, doesn't it? So there may be some volunteer work in the planning, but we'll have to see if the terrain allows it, and we'll have to see where we are on the Arundo protocols so it can be done in a safe manner. Going back to the Watershed Council, it just issued a couple of days ago a very nice 2019 achievements report. So I think it's 20 odd pages long. Lafayette's mentioned there a number of times and very favorably. So in your free time, which I'm sure you have none, you're also welcome to check back on that. Thank you.
Cool.
That's it for me.
Thanks, Ron. Is Peter Norton there behind City of Lafayette or something? I don't know if he's here.
No, unfortunately, let me check again. He wasn't here when I tried before. Nope.
Okay.
Unless he's under a different name, Peter Norton. If you're out there under another name or a phone number, please raise your hand now. Yep.
Okay. Well, he was going to report out on a little project we did with Bentley School on poster presentations that they had there and reviewing them. I wasn't there. I don't know if any of the other members were there. Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, we were invited by the AP biology teacher at Bentley to come, maybe judging is too harsh of a word, but to participate and give feedback on the special project that she had the students do. And they came up with their own projects. They all involved a section of Lafayette Creek that flows along the perimeter of the school property. And I think, Dave, you were there, right? And myself and Pete. And we interacted. We went from poster to poster and we interacted with the students. And was, real good experience. Again, great community work. And Speaking of posters, I just want to give a plug to Austin. You didn't get to hear him speak much, but for that watershed symposium last December, he actually submitted a poster for display at that symposium. So just a shout out for him too. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this up. I know the list of goals for this coming year or this year sort of stems off of what we've already talked about, and I don't want to, you know, bend your ear too long. I know you just had a marathon meeting earlier in the week, so you know, I'm just going to quickly go through this. So our goals are to number one, finalize the design for the East Bay Regional Park WW grant project at First Street and Golden Gate Way. As mentioned earlier, we're 2.5 years in out of a 5-year project that's supposed to be done. And, you know, we don't want to get a bad rep for not following through on our project work. I think Matt Lutrip right now is looking at what it might take to hire a consultant to finish the design work. We don't have those numbers yet, but just be prepared that we may be coming back with an ask to get a consultant on this so that we can wrap that design work up and get shovels in the ground and accomplish that project. The second item is, again, the amendment to the city codes, plans, and guidelines. It's been frustrating 3 years trying to get that work accomplished. Doesn't seem like it's such a big deal. I do understand that, you know, particularly the flood ordinance that needs modification does need some careful work. So right now, Sarah Allen and Matt Lutrip have gone through the documents and sort of identified what needs to be done. We just don't know exactly how we're getting staff time to do that. So again, preparation, I think Sarah's looking at how we might hire a consultant to finish that work up too. So we don't know the numbers yet, but be prepared. We may need to come back to you and ask for some money to get that work done. I think, you know, you need to realize that as redevelopment is occurring in the downtown area, projects get started, other ones will come along as areas get, you know, modernized, and we're going to lose out. We're going to not be able to get our trail through that's specified in the plan if we don't have all the ammunition that we can to make sure that, you know, we can leverage these projects. So I think it's really important, and we're going to lose out on a lot if we don't manage to get those things wrapped up this year. Rindo Donak's removal project, as you just heard, it's moving ahead. We have, because of, you know, our work with the Watershed Council last year, they're really supporting us. We're one of 2 major projects that's getting that money from the Concord mitigation. And so I think we're really lucky that we're on it, and that will happen this year. We've been collaborating on a bridge and landscape design for 100 Lafayette Circle redevelopment site. And we're really thankful that the architect and the landowners, Edward and Freddie Madigan, are interested in implementing some of the things that are in the downtown plan, specifically the bridge across that's Happy Valley Creek. And that will be an important opening up of access across that creek from Lafayette Circle over to Mount Diablo Boulevard. So they've been very cooperative. We just finished a design charrette with them last week on that, and are continuing to work on the project. They're interested in putting in at least one of the creek icons there at the bridge site, and some other signage guiding people to the creeks off of Lafayette Circle. So I think that'll be a really good model project to have behind us. And a couple other things. We have a Lafayette Homeowners Creek Guide that is badly out of date. if we have time, we would like to update that. Specifically, it needs updating for new methods of dealing with creek bank stabilization and such than what we had at the time the last it was published. And we do require finishing design, at least, of the signage for the First Street and Golden Gateway project that we got the Lafayette Community Foundation grant for. So we need to spend that money this year, and we plan to do that by working on design and maybe fabrication. We'll see whether it's in-house design. I could do that potentially, or whether we go outside for that. And finally, you know, if we can manage to move ahead successfully on the projects that we've gotten money for in the past, we will continue to seek funding for other projects related to the Downtown Creeks plan. One particularly high priority project we've talked about now for several years is that Riparian Vegetation Restoration Manual that will be useful to private landowners in that area when they start projects and want to restore along the creek. That's a hard one to get grant funding for, and so we may need to brainstorm on ways that we can get that manual completed. And I think that's enough for this year.
Well, I think it's a great list of accomplishments and good plans for the future. I know that I did get a chance to work with you on the question of the rain garden project, and I'd be glad to hear something in terms of consultant costs to get that going. I share your concern about performing on this grant, and this is one we want to make sure we deliver on time so we can get future funding. So Will, Dave, Phil, Jeff, Austin, Ron, all of you, great work. I really appreciate all you've done. A lot of progress this year. Let me see if there's any questions from council members. Councilmember Bliss.
Yeah, just a comment and a question. So first of all, I just want to echo what the mayor said. This is fantastic work. You know, I think Lafayette is a city of creeks. And when I was on the planning commission, I had a chance to provide feedback and comment on the creeks plan as that was coming together. I am just so excited about what the creeks plan means for our city. Creeks are one of those things that help tie together so many different parts of our city, but they also are a resource in terms of education, cultural resource, recreational resource, environmental resource, all of which is touched upon in your report. And I think the educational opportunities in particular here, whether you're working with young people and teaching them, a new generation of people, about the value of creeks and what they mean for our community is really valuable. So really excited to hear the progress. Love hearing about the Icons program. I think that's a great way to create a stronger sense of identity around the creeks in our city. So overall, just loved hearing all this. It's amazing the amount of work you're getting done and all the progress. And the only thing it's sort of a question and a comment, I suppose. I really, I like that your plans going forward are ambitious and that you're very upfront with us and very kind of clear-eyed about the dollars that might be needed. And my only thought there is, as we all know, we're in a really sort of uncharted territory fiscally, like every other city right now. And unfortunately, as you all know, it doesn't look, well, I'll just say the federal government has been slow on aid down to localities like ours. And it's not clear what, if any, help states and localities will be getting in the near term from on the fiscal front from the federal government. So just with an eye toward kind of the fiscal realities that we'll be facing later this year and into 2021, we're really grateful that, you know, we have with staff, with Tracy and Jennifer and others, people that are really keeping an eye on sort of how we're doing and how we should budget accordingly. So I would just, they have always been a great resource in thinking through what might be possible fiscally, and to the extent that some of the things will be coming back to council looking for in terms of dollars. I know some of them are grant funded, but if there's anything with sort of general fund implications, I think my thought there would just be to make sure that you're getting with staff early in the process because with a lot of projects that are publicly funded right now, there's a need to sort of approach them in terms of like kind of a plan A and a plan B, where a plan B is almost like a somewhat scaled down version of what you would ideally want to do. So I'm just some thoughts in terms of how to make what you want to do fiscally viable, just aware of the budget realities that we're facing. And I guess my question is whether, generally speaking, some of these things are the types of projects that could be potentially sort of right-sized to fit the sort of resources that we might have available to us as a city, purely in terms of financial terms.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really answer that. I do believe that both of the projects that we're talking about, which are pieces of larger things, are fairly small amounts on the grand scheme of things. But I do, I totally understand the fiscal situation that we're all in at this point in time. So until we get better numbers and things, I don't really know.
Sure. Okay. Anyway, just something to be mindful of, but overall, I just wanted to reiterate that just great work by the Creeks team, and really excited to see this continue to move forward. Thanks for a really impactful year for our city.
Stephen, can I make a comment about your question, Stephen?
Absolutely, Dave, please.
To some extent, the projects that we have, the projects that we described that we may need money for are really, they're staff allocation type projects. Normally those would be done in-house, if you will. But because of a lot of other things going on, those resources are being directed elsewhere. So it becomes a priority item. So I don't know how to answer your question specifically, but there's sort of an implicit choices that's been made in there. It's not to say we can't go out and see if we can find a substitute, which we can do. And I appreciate your admonition about being clear-eyed and realistic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, David. I hope it didn't come across as an admonition. I just want to say it was just more of something to be kind of mindful of. I know that you guys are all tracking on that really closely. It's just I'm just underscoring that we're in such uncharted territory fiscally, not just Lafayette, but just every public sector entity right now. I just want to see this continuing to move forward, and just flagging that as something to just be mindful of going ahead. But thank you for the thoughts, Will and David, on that, and look forward to hearing more from this group as we move forward.
Okay, Matt, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to let you know that we will be coming back to the city council with a staff report that does outline how we can accomplish these things, how much it's going to cost, and where we can potentially find the funds to complete these projects. So something for you to look forward to in the next month or so.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilmember Geringer, did you have a question or comment?
A comment, but thank you, Matt, on when this plan would be coming back, because I do want to thank all of the volunteers. You guys are getting things done and in these very uncertain times, and very much appreciate the opportunity to serve on the committee as a liaison last year, and to follow with what you're doing now. And Matt, thanks for letting us know when this will come back, because several of these things, as they pointed out, like our ordinance amendments, everybody knows, but they need to be done so that we're able to move quickly when there are grant opportunities, in addition to getting the projects that are already done. So I want to thank staff, and really hats off to the Creeks Committee for all of the work that you do.
Okay, Vice Mayor Kendall.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I love how you guys have kind of divided and conquered. That is a well-run committee, and that's how you guys are getting a lot done, and nice job.
Thanks.
Okay, one last comment. Whenever I drive down or walk down Mount Diablo, I can't help but notice all these new grasses growing up by Sotheby's there. And Teresa and I both really are very proud of how tall those are. They're really nice. Great work, you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for all you've done.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Are there items that council members would like to remove from the consent calendar? Okay, are there any requests from the public for an item to be removed from the consent calendar? Jeff, are you getting any interest in that? From the public?
I don't see any hands raised, Mayor Anderson.
Okay, well then I'll certainly open to a motion on the consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Do I have
My
a second?
second. I second.
Excellent. Okay, no comment beyond that, so we'll do a quick vote. Vice Mayor Kendall,
Aye.
Councilmember Bliss,
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also, so the consent calendar passes unanimously with one absent. All right, we're on to old business. This is the extension of the tolling agreement regarding potential litigation challenging approval of West End project in Lafayette. Ms. Abramian.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson and members of the council. As you might recall at your last regular council meeting, you authorized the approval of a tolling agreement to avoid litigation regarding what we call the West End project. It's a 12-unit condominium project that you have previously approved on Mount Diablo Boulevard. The parties have been working very well and very closely to see if they can resolve the issue and not litigate the matter. And we think that with some additional time, that is a real possibility. And so at this point, I'm recommending that you extend the tolling agreement to September 15th, which is just past your next regular council meeting date.
Okay, are there questions of staff on this from the council? All right, do we have any public comments on this item? Jeff? Jeff, are you there?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, Joanne, thank you. All right, then we'll bring this back for a motion.
Go ahead. No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Councilmember Geringer.
It's whoever's quickest on the mute button. I move to authorize the city attorney to amend the tolling agreement to extend the tolling period to September 15th, 2020.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I can second.
Second with Vice Mayor Kendall. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Vice Mayor Kendall.
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
And I am a yes. It's 4 approving and 1 absent. So Mala, thank you for your work on that. We'll move on to item 11B, and this is the General Plan 2040 update.
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
looking
Al.
for the planning folks here, so give me half a sec.
Okay.
Oh, I see. We have someone coming in as Lafayette Planning instead of their name, so let's move them over. And we have several other people who are supposed to join us. No, I don't see her. Nope, not her. Nope, not that person either. Not that person either. So it's Lafayette Planning is the only person in right now.
So we have Renata and we have Diana.
Yes, and Jonathan Fox may be joining us shortly.
I don't see Diana in attending out there.
She's a panelist.
I added her. She's in.
Oh, you
Snuck
did?
in.
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
in. Thank you.
Got it. No wonder I didn't see her. She's already in. You're fast. Thanks, Mala.
Okay, good evening, council members and the public. Tonight, staff will present some updates on the requests for information regarding the general plan update and the general plan advisory committee selection process, among other things. But first, we would like to debut our general plan update overview video. Oh, one moment. Let me make sure I am sharing the audio. All right, let me know if you can't hear this.
I can't hear it.
Can't hear it.
Yep, I can't quite hear that.
Restaurants, yay.
There we go, share computer sound. We'll try again.
Okay.
Lafayette, California. What comes to mind? Green hills, great schools, restaurants in downtown, or is it endless recreational opportunities? Truth is, Lafayette means something different to any one person, and each individual voice helps to form our collective identity. The city is currently undertaking a general plan update to better understand the community's values and form a vision for the city's future. Over the next few years, the city, through its General Plan Advisory Committee, will actively look to its residents, business owners, and other community stakeholders to help answer the question, what is our vision for Lafayette? The General Plan is a long-range document that will guide decision-making for the next 20 years. The plan will explore the city's future through the lenses of land use, housing, circulation, conservation, open space, noise, and safety. These elements will be discussed through a series of public meetings, surveys, and workshops. Feedback from the public will culminate in updated programs and policies that shape how Lafayette looks, feels, and grows over the next 20 years. To learn more about the city's general plan, please explore planlafayette.org.
So our assistant planner, Jonathan Fox, worked very hard on that video, and we are excited to have the opportunity to share
Very
that.
nice. It's music you can dance to. You know?
Okay, so on to our presentation. Tonight, staff is requesting the following 3 items, or going to discuss the following 3 items and requesting actions on each from council. First, we will discuss the General Plan Advisory Committee recruitment and selection methods. Second, the City Council GPAC liaison will meet a nominee. And third, the housing element CEQA consultant selection. So as a refresher for council members, the anticipated GPAC composition will include 4 representatives from commissions and committees from the city, 4 residential district representatives selected through a lottery, likely for our recommendation, 1 at-large representative, which we'll discuss further in further detail, a nonprofit representative, and then 1 representative from the Chamber of Commerce, for a total of 12 GPAC members. So at the July 27th meeting, council recommended revisions to the geographic lottery districts, or geographic lottery districts, extension of the application window, and alternative ways to select resident members. Staff recommends extending the application period to 6 weeks to provide more time for public outreach and applicant submittals, while avoiding significant impacts to the overall project timeline. And at the last meeting, council was supportive for having a nonprofit representative, and staff wants to clarify the intended selection process for that nonprofit, which would be limited to 1 application per nonprofit organization. And then the nonprofit will be selected through a lottery, and they would nominate an individual to represent the interests of all nonprofits based on in or operating in Lafayette throughout the general plan process. Further, for the residential representatives, staff has considered multiple methods of selecting general plan advisory committee members and to determine which would be the most viable and appropriate for the context of the general plan update. Staff recommends a combination of targeted outreach to underrepresented communities throughout the application period, and the selection of GPAC members would be through a weighted lottery to favor the applications of Black, Indigenous, and all other people of color. Entries for the applicants that self-identify as people of color would be duplicated in the lottery drawing to increase the odds of their selection. Staff finds this option offers many advantages, namely the increased likelihood of equitable representation on the GPAC with few drawbacks. We feel a diversity of GPAC members is significant to the general plan update process as the Lafayette community begins its collective envisioning of the city's future. And as GPAC members will bring their perspectives to the process and will guide the development of programs and policies to embody that shared vision over the next 20 years, staff finds the weighted lottery is the option best suited to potentially bring together varied perspectives to inform the general plan process. So next, I believe Assistant Planner Jonathan Fox is available to discuss proposals for the residential districts and the eligibility criteria.
Thank you. The last time we presented, the council asked staff to look into the possibility of separating Akilani's Valley from downtown. And that's something that we've looked at in terms of population size and representation since that last meeting. We found by looking at our GIS data that as the map shows, a large portion of Akilani's Valley consists of undeveloped land for the Lafayette Reservoir. So the number of households and the total population of Akilani's Valley is significantly lower than the other districts. So in that, we found that separating Akilani's Valley as its own district would lead to uneven representation in comparison to the other districts. And if the council were to direct separating Akilani's Valley from downtown, it'd be a recommendation to have Akilani's Valley join with Happy Valley due to the similarities in character and similarities in housing stock compared to downtown. The last component of the GPAC composition we wanted to clarify is the residency requirements for the districts. So staff would recommend that to qualify as a representative for the district, that applicant would have to be a resident of the district, and we could clarify that, confirm that by having that as a specific question on the GPAC application. We still want non-resident folks who work in the city to serve on GPAC, and there'd be 3 opportunities for that. That would be the at-large position, the nonprofit position, and the Chamber of Commerce representative. So in those 3 categories, you could be a resident, but also be open to non-residents who work in the city. Next slide, please. So that concludes what we wanted to cover on the GPAC composition. The next point of direction we wanted to get to is the City Council Liaison. So at the last meeting and at the Planning Subcommittee, there was an agreement that the City Council and Planning Commission should remain non-voting members to allow for an increased number of our typical residents who may not be associated with the city government to serve on GPAC. And that's what we're looking for today, is for the City Council to nominate one of their own to be a liaison. And just as a refresher, the liaison is to be a non-voting member to represent the City Council's interests on GPAC and to report back on GPAC as needed back to the council. Next slide, and Diana Elrod will go over the housing element CEQA consultant.
I just wanted to let you know that Diana is having internet problems and she's trying her best to get back in. So I'm going to ask Greg Wolf to join us to talk about this since Diana is unable to get in.
Okay.
Greg?
Mayor, can you hear me?
We can. Go
Very
ahead.
good. So the planning staff issued a request for proposals for the housing element EIR CEQA analysis. Again, just to revisit, the general plan update is going to be a multi-year process and encompass a minimum of 7 elements in the general plan, but that is not, there are no hard and fast deadlines on the overall general plan. We did speak to timing previously. The housing element is the one and only element that has to be approved by the state, and there is a hard and fast deadline on that, and thus that is the impetus to move forward with the housing element first. And so staff issued a request for proposals to conduct the environmental review for that. We will be doing some upzoning of it, at minimum the BART parking lots owned by BART pursuant to AB 2923. And so an environmental review certainly will be necessary. The city received 2 proposals back, and those have been vetted by the team. And there were 2. They were laid out in this table and vetted by staff, as well as discussed with the city council planning liaisons. So the first was from Ecoterra, and the price being $131,000. In staff's review, they are relatively new to work of this scope. And so that limited experience, I think, weighed pretty significantly towards staff's recommendation. The second proposal was from ESA, which comes in at $292,000, and they have extensive experience. Given the recent changes in state law, this is going to be a significant undertaking. So we will need to be looking at greenhouse gas emissions, and a variety of vehicle miles traveled. So these are new environmental impact analyses that have not been conducted previously for previous general plans. And so this is new territory. And so our confidence, our evaluation finds and recommendation finds that ESA would be a very good fit for the community and the need for the general plan update, the housing element environmental review.
And if I can add, at the last meeting, you asked us to check if ESA could hire a different sub-consultant, a traffic consultant in particular. Staff did reach out to ESA, and they have worked with the Ecoterra sub-consultant, Fair and Pierce, in the past, and would be willing to employ them as their sub-consultant, but the budget would need to be increased. As you can see in the staff report, the subs budget for ESA is $33,000, whereas for Ecoterra, it's $49,000, a little over $49,000. So additionally, ESA has advised us, the city, that they do have transportation planners and engineers on staff who could serve as peer reviewers if TJKM were retained as the sub-consultant for traffic. So we seek council's direction first on the primary, and we recommend ESA, and also on whether or not you wish to have the traffic sub-consultant changed.
And lastly, with respect to budget, there is a difference between the two in terms of budget. However, the council has directed staff to apply for SB2 grant funding in the up to $165,000, which we have been granted, as well as LEAP funding. And so the much of the funds for the environmental analysis and housing element are not general funds and are provided through grant funding.
All right, just a summary of what we're asking for again to inform your discussion: to confirm the GPAC recruitment and selection process, designate a city council liaison to the GPAC, and finally to authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with ESA for the housing element CEQA document. Thanks for having us back and talking about GPAC.
Okay, thank you very much. Good presentation. So I made some notes also, and I think there's a little more that we need to kind of go over. I guess let me just start with the GPAC selection process. Let's start there and see if everyone's going to be comfortable with the proposal. The first is the district changing of Happy Valley being combined with Akilani Valley. Council, any thoughts on that? Concerns about that? What do you think, Vice Mayor Kendall?
Hey, yeah, so I took the opportunity to reach out to the Akilani Valley Homeowners Association, thinking that they might have some opinions about this, and I would definitely talk to them. All my contact with them was informal, but their thoughts are that they have a lot more in common with Happy Valley than they do the downtown, and that was kind of their conclusion too. But I would definitely, I wouldn't take that on as a final word. I think that maybe letting them know that this is probably going to happen, and if they're okay with it, just to kind of as a act of kindness and a reach out to them would be a reasonable thing to do. But I think we're on the right track. I think that the fact they didn't know that they were with the downtown and they went, oh, wow, that seems really unusual, is I think we're on the right track by changing that.
Okay, Stephen?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, thank you, Vice Mayor, for that outreach. That's really helpful. I'm comfortable with making that change. I think the case that staff makes in the staff report is a compelling one for reordering the selection that way. Also, I think that in addition to what has been pointed out by staff and also Vice Mayor Kendall's report back, there's also the fact that the people in Akilani Valley largely send their kids to Happy Valley Elementary. So you already have that part of town is already a community of sorts. They talk to each other, their kids go to school together. So I would be comfortable with that direction of making that change to the selection districts for the GPAC.
Okay, Councilmember Geringer, any thoughts on this?
Agree.
Okay, and I certainly agree too. So whether there's a conversation with the folks at Akilani Valley or not, I think we all feel this is a reasonable change to the districting. So staff can go forward with that direction. In terms of the nonprofit representation, staff has proposed a method where the nonprofits are actually in the lottery, and then they would select a representative if they're chosen as the nonprofit representative to actually represent them on the GPAC, as opposed to individuals within the nonprofit being in the lottery. So feedback on that. Vice Mayor Kendall, any thoughts?
I think that's a much better way to do it, is to have the nonprofit have just one. I think that seems totally reasonable.
Okay, Councilmember Geringer.
I agree on that as well. What I was curious about we had at the last meeting, and I pulled it up when preparing a list of stakeholders and there were a number of nonprofits on there. Are those the ones that will be included, or how are we determining nonprofits that go into who can apply?
Renata, can you address that?
So the application will be available and distributed widely, actually, to all the city members and our residents and all the stakeholders. So there is a list of nonprofits on that list that will be eligible, along with any others who work in the city and are interested in participating.
So I was thank you, specifically about nonprofits in this particular question, because it sounds like the direction we're going is that nonprofits will all have the opportunity to fill out the application, and then they'll pick their appointee, if you will, to the GPAC. So I just we're sending it out far and wide to all nonprofits, and they'll have equal opportunity to participate or to be selected.
Correct. Yeah. So each organization may submit one entry into the lottery, and then yes, they'll select their representative.
And so I think at this point, maybe it's also important to note that as we're selecting the GPAC, which is 11 people, we do have that very long list of stakeholders. Everyone in the community is a stakeholder and will be very much involved in the process of developing the general plan and our values and our vision. Thank you, Jonathan, for that video. But just make sure, I just want to make sure that everybody understands in the community that we'll be asking repeatedly about your opinions and giving an opportunity for everyone's voices to be heard. And so as we're looking at this, it almost sounds like, oh, 11 people, but I just want to make sure this is a great opportunity for our community to encourage everyone, no matter how long you've lived here, no matter whether you volunteered or served on a nonprofit now, to be a part of this process. And it's critical that everyone is.
Okay, Councilmember Bliss, any thoughts on the nonprofit methodology? You're muted, so I can't hear you.
All right. I completely agree with the direction we're headed. I like the idea of basically just every nonprofit can put one name or their name, I suppose, in the proverbial hat, and then they can pick whoever from their staff they want to be in their place. I think it's a level playing field. It doesn't penalize smaller nonprofits or overly reward larger nonprofits. I think that's a good way to go with this.
Okay, sounds good. Next item I have is the outreach process for equity. And I think the proposal is that we have kind of an extended outreach to the community and then a weighted lottery to help assure that we have good representation across the board in the GPAC. Thoughts on that, Vice Mayor Kendall?
I think that's great. I think we have to be really careful with the wording and the thoughts. I would offer that we have a meeting with Tiffany on Friday, and maybe she could help us with some of the language that we might use for that and understanding what I think we're going for, maybe have her help us with how to phrase that. She's just really good with words. We want to make sure that we're careful here and do the right way.
Okay, sounds like a support for that idea with some caveats. Councilmember Bliss?
I think it's a great idea, first of all, to involve Tiffany in some of the language and the framing. As I understand it, and tell me if this is not correct, Mayor Anderson or staff, we're being asked, there's sort of 4 potential directions here in this memo, which I think are very clearly laid out, first of all. So thanks to staff for that. And we're being asked to sort of give direction on which of those 4 we think hits the mark. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay. I don't know if we're at the point of having to put our preferences into the mix. I think, first of all, I think these are all really nicely articulated. So thank you, especially the pros and the cons. I find myself drawn more toward number 2 of all of them, which is the targeted outreach, but also, an actual, like, very specifically weighted process that from a very deliberate and intentional and concrete way increases the likelihood that people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color would just have quantitatively better odds of being picked. I think the other options could work, but I like that. And if we have to educate people about the context of historic inequities, then we'll have to do that. And that's one of the things that we're embarked upon as a city already. So I find myself drawn to number 2 of the options.
Okay, and that's good because that was the one that was recommended by staff and the one that Vice Mayor Kendall commented on. So that's good. So that sounds like support for the recommendation. Councilmember Geringer.
I support that as well. And just clarifying that this same process will go across the districts and the at-large selection for the at-large member. It'll be the same process.
Yes, we can make it so. Yeah.
Okay, there you
I
go.
support that.
Okay, and I'm fine with that also. And I think getting Tiffany's input would be really wise in terms of how this is worded. Okay, and then the next one I have is the liaison for the council. And I know Councilmember Geringer did approach me earlier today and said she was certainly interested. I don't know if others are, Vice Mayor Kendall.
Sure, but I honor, it's a non-voting position, and I honor, whoever wants to do this. I think it's great. So I didn't know we were supposed to reach out, and I would have had I thought
No,
of it,
I
but-
didn't expect it to happen, but it
Oh,
just
okay.
happened. So,
Okay.
some people are a little more aggressive than others.
No, it's totally fine. Yes.
So thank you. I did want to say that at the last meeting, when we didn't have this agendized, I was prepared to say that I was interested, but also that the council members who are, and mayor, who currently are the representatives on the planning, they have the liaison role to the planning commission. I had made a strong argument for myself that Stephen as the primary and or Mike, would be that person. And so since that meeting, I know some things, have changed, but hope that both the mayor and Councilmember Bliss stay very much involved. And I don't know if it makes sense to have an alternate, and I would love to be, the primary, and if Vice Mayor Kendall would serve as the alternate. Of course, we're doing this in a setting where Cam isn't here, or Councilmember Burks, but anyway, that was just sort of where my thinking was, and just reached out to the mayor today to just let him know. So if it's seen as aggressive, so be it.
That's okay.
You're not apologizing. Huh? Okay, well, look, I like the interest and the energy, and I think the idea of a primary and alternative makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
We do that with all of our committees as it is. So if staff is willing, let's set Councilmember Geringer as the primary, Vice Mayor Kendall as the alternate, and that's your liaison connection for the council.
I will
Go
reach
ahead,
out
Vice
to
Mayor Kendall.
I will reach out to Cam, because I'm going to anyway tomorrow whenever he is free, and explain and see what his interest is too, just to
Sounds
keep
good.
it fair.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly fine.
And if you're going to do that, I did have that on. I had sent him a text, not about this, but was going to
Okay.
follow up with him tomorrow. So if you're doing that part, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. And then the last one I have is
Stephen.
the ESA
Stephen has
versus
Stephen had his hand up.
Oh, I'm
I just
sorry.
had just a brief comment, Mr. Mayor, on that. So I just want to first, there'll be chances for comments later, obviously, but I just want to thank Teresa and Susan for their interest. I think they're a great fit for this role. Needless to say, it's something that, having really enjoyed being on the planning subcommittee, I'm gonna miss having a crack at doing as a council member. But as I mentioned to others, including staff, I look forward to being involved in the general plans that moves forward, even as a civilian, as we move into 2021. So appreciate Susan and Teresa stepping up and being the liaisons to GPAC. I think it's a critical role, and very excited to see them take it on.
Excellent. That's good. Okay. Last item I have is ESA versus Ecoterra. So I guess the main question kind of deals with the TJKM issue. Vice Mayor Kendall, you were concerned about TJKM being involved, and that's
Yes.
kind of what pushed us back to this question of Fair and Pierce possibly being a substitute at additional cost. So where are we now, Vice Mayor Kendall?
So I didn't explain my reasoning the last time, but my reasoning is not right or wrong or good or bad or better or worse. I think it's fair to say that TJKM right now is controversial. And unfortunately, if we pick them, we may be fighting a battle right out of the gate that I think that we don't want. And it has nothing to do with anything else, but I think we might get pushback at this point just purely on the controversial issues that are out there today, however that works out. But I'd rather not fight that fight on this. I want to give everybody, I don't want to have to do that right out of the gate, I guess. That's what I'm afraid of. And that's why my concern.
So then let me, before Councilor Bliss, I'll get to you. Let me just see if we have a selection on the general, the principal consultant. Do you, Vice Mayor Candell, like the ESA or do you
Yes.
prefer Ecoterra? So you're
ESA.
okay with ESA? Okay, Councilmember Bliss, let me just ask you, are you okay with ESA?
Yes, as the principal, yes.
Okay, Councilmember Geringer?
Yes.
Okay, and I am too, so that's fine. So I guess the question simply becomes whether it's fair and peers or it's TJKM with some kind of oversight internally from ESA staff. So Councilmember Bliss, go ahead, what do you have?
First of all, I just want to get just a clarification from staff. Thank you for speaking to the potential cost difference of going with fair and pairs over or in lieu of TJKM as the sub for ESA on the contract. Because of the numbers that you pointed to in the table on page, I'm not seeing this page number, sorry, but the table with the budgets in the staff report. In looking at those numbers, what I inferred from the way that was presented is that what we'd be looking at is if we went from TJKM to fair and pairs as a sub, it would basically be a delta of about 16.4. Is that pretty much what it is? 30. In other words, that difference in the subs between 33,000 for ESA currently and 49.4 for Ecoterra. That difference, that's basically the difference between TJKM and fair and pairs. Am I reading that? Am I getting that correct?
Yes, that's how I read it as well, Councilmember Bliss. I'm going to ask Renata or Jonathan, since they were the contacts, and since Sarah Allen is not with us this evening, if they can expand on that.
So unfortunately, the Core 4 has not been directly involved in the housing element consultant selection. That's why we had Diana calling in.
Okay.
But Greg, I'm not sure if you have any other information to provide.
That is my understanding as well, but we could all be wrong. But if it's not, I can certainly reach back out to the council and provide you with an update.
That's fine. I think, we have a sense of the general range. I just want to make sure I understood the dollars involved. I have to tell you, and this is in no way a reflection at all of my own personal assessment of the job that TJKM has done on other work for the city, or of my assessment of them as partners to the city in working on other projects. That said, so this is not a reflection of my view of their work. I think they've been doing a great job with the city. However, I am grateful to the Vice Mayor for raising this question last time. And I think she raises a really, really key point for us to consider. And I think that, the reality, as the Vice Mayor has pointed out, is that it could be, and again, I'm very impressed with TJKM, but it could be the type of thing where, just given the moment that we're in, it could make it, put the city in a position where we're having to fight on a front that we really don't want to have to fight on, as we're trying to come out of the gates strong on the general plan work. And I think we're really coming out strong already, given everything I've seen, the video, the website, the work of staff. And to me, if we're looking at $16,000 difference, which if you look at in the context of the whole contract, it's about 5% of what the whole contract would be with ESA. I'm comfortable expending the extra dollars to have it be fair and pairs as the sub on transportation.
Okay, well, that's good.
That's my
That
view.
helps.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think maybe what we can do for now, let's just assume that we would authorize the additional cost up to $20,000, just in case there's some kind of complexity to this we don't understand. But I think that's kind of what we're talking about. So $20,000 add, we get fair and pure on the ESA contract. So that sounds acceptable to Councilmember Bliss. Vice Mayor Candell, what do you think about that?
Perfect.
You're good
Yes.
with that? Councilmember Geringer?
Yes, and thank you again, Vice Mayor Candell, for bringing that out. I think that just as we would change auditors and different consultants at different times, I think that it gives us an opportunity for new look at things. And so I agree. And up
Okay,
to the
and
20th.
Yeah, I'm fine with that also. So staff, we've got a $20,000 cap. If it's going to go over that, then we'd like to have it come back to us. Otherwise, we're authorizing that change with ESA. So I think that covers most of the items. Are there any questions of council members of the staff report in terms of what's been laid out, in terms of the schedule and things that they're going to be doing on this process? Everybody sanguine? Okay, Councilmember Bliss.
Yeah, I have just one question for staff. It's sort of a question and a suggestion, but really I'm deferring to staff on some of the details here because I don't think that it's council's role to get overly involved in some of the day-to-day details of how you do your work. But one thought I had, I think the rollout of all this in terms of how we do civic engagement and trying to cast a wide net is really critical. I know the rollout of the website is something you're planning. I think the video is great. It really helps explain the stakes and why this matters, I think, in very approachable terms. I will also say in the video, it was kind of nice to see some of those parts of town that I haven't seen in the last 5 months. So thank you for that. That was an added note that I really appreciated. But I think that, obviously the last thing anyone needs right now in their life is like yet another Zoom meeting. But I do think that said, if there's a way as part of just the rollout of even the availability of the lottery and the fact that we're like, hey, we're launching this and we want people to apply, if there's some way to do that as like a very kind of public announcement, maybe like sometimes with grants, what funders will do is they'll have like what's called a bidders conference, where they just like let people show up, express interest, ask questions, get like something a little bit more public than just an email or a website posting. Again, I know staff is beyond busy at this point, but if it's viable to do something that feels more kind of public and where the people can really kind of touch and feel the process and understand what they're being asked to apply for, I think that might be helpful, and also gives you an event to rally interest around too, which, as we've seen in the past several months when we can't gather in person, I think seems to be a pretty effective tool. So just something to consider. This is not formal direction, but it's just something to ponder as you think about the rollout. So that's all I have.
Thank you for that. I think we included in our staff report that we plan to hold informational sessions over Zoom to try and answer questions, engage with folks directly, invite them to that dialogue.
Great, I caught that. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
Okay, Vice Mayor Kandel.
Yeah, great idea, Stephen. I know Jeff, we worked on what was the last time we did a little info thing, right? And so if you want the council members also to go out and make a little pitch, just to kind of, hey, we're doing this, get ready. And so use us also as
Okay,
sounding
great. Well, I'll
boards.
be working with the planning staff to make sure we get a lot of exposure on this.
Perfect.
Thank you. Of course. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Geringer.
Just definitely supportive of the ideas about the informational sessions, and then also making sure, because as we talked about, all of us have varying levels of social media presence, but we do have some, and we can be a great resource. And I've been trying already to talk to people about how to get involved and finding out about their communications channels and threads. I know nobody has the same amount of coverage as Lynn Hedane, but there are a lot of people out there that we can tap into, and I know that Jeff will make sure that we get everything as soon as it's hot off the presses. So, but thank you. This is very exciting.
Okay, that's all good. So what we need to do now is see if there's any, excuse me, Narup, go ahead. You're muted. You're muted.
We have 2 hands raised.
Yes, yeah.
That's where I was going next. Are there any public comments?
All right, Mayor
On this
Anderson, there
item?
are. First, we have Cheryl McDonald, who will be followed by David Clark. So here's Cheryl.
Okay.
She's coming in via phone. Hey, Cheryl, you're on, so go ahead. I'll try and unmute you there. Or you can unmute yourself. Okay, Cheryl, if you're able to unmute yourself, you are in the meeting. There she goes.
All right, I'm still figuring it out, round two. Hello, council. I had a couple questions as the novice citizen out here. And I haven't gone through this. So I actually wanted to know what at large meant. I can come up with ideas, but I'm not even sure I'm in the ballpark. I love the idea of what's happening with the Zoom meeting. I was going to actually make a comment about that too, about how to get out the word out to the public. And Lynn Hedane does have a wonderful listing, but there are a lot of little HOAs that are not part of it that we could probably do. And I love getting the council members to help out. I have another question though, is besides, as I said, I don't know this process and what I'm learning, but is it possible that we can have a second two people from the chamber? One would, because usually it seems to be large businesses that are involved and have a small business, mom and pop kind of business that would also be a member of this party as well. So they would have different viewpoints. And that's my question.
Okay, that sounds fine.
I don't know what that large means though.
Yeah, we're going to get that for you right now.
Yes.
All right.
Jonathan, go ahead.
As the map showed earlier, the city is divided into what we're calling districts for the selection of representing specific areas of the city. So in order to be a representative of that district, you have to live in that district. The at-large member is not tied to any one district and represents the city as a whole.
Okay.
So
that helps. Thank
question,
you.
follow up. So can the same person apply to both, or do you have to pick one or the other?
I imagine that we would do a round of selection for a particular category, and if that person is selected, they would no longer be a candidate for the at-large.
Okay.
So you can be one, but you can't be both.
But you can apply for both.
But you can apply for both. Correct.
Got it.
Okay. Cheryl, I think.
And then
is that?
No, my other question was about the chamber members, one being large, one being small, like Oakwood is, and hotel and car wash are kind of big businesses. And then there are all these small businesses. And so I didn't know, because I haven't been through this process, if it would make sense to have one of each size involved.
So that's just something we have to take into consideration. We're trying to keep the number of representatives down. It's an interesting point. I think our thought was simply that the chamber would be able to select a representative and they could pick whoever they wanted. So it's not that they would be big or small, it'd be up to the chamber to decide who best represents their interest.
Yeah, I just think that there's different considerations for mom and pop size versus the car wash and Oakwood. And so those are my considerations and my concerns. I understand you're trying to keep it small, but there are different viewpoints and one doesn't necessarily understand as well as the other. So those are my thoughts. So thank you. And yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl, very much.
That maybe, right, if you can consider that, that'd be great. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Other public comments?
Yes, we have two more. David Clark will join us now, followed by Tess Olson. So here comes David Clark.
You're muted, David. There you go.
Shows me okay here. Okay, I'm sorry I got dark outside, but I've got a couple of questions and maybe a comment, but let me toss these out there and you can kind of see where I'm going with this, I think. And that is that on the at-large position and the 4 district positions, this could be, it probably will be a multi-year project, I'm thinking. And so one question is, do you want the same person for the multiple years? I'm assuming yes. If it is the same person for multiple years, do you want to try to quantify how many hours of a commitment that's going to be for on a weekly basis, monthly basis, annual basis, whatever. So you get a realistic pool of people that applies in the first place. So you don't wind up with somebody who gets in for 6 months or a year and says, whoa, this is more than I bargained for, and has to leave. That's kind of one concept. Another thing is, life happens. So if it is a long period of time and someone cannot make it for the whole time frame, you want to set up an alternate selection procedure, so you don't have to go through this whole process a second time. And another sort of observation is, it seems like the residential districts and the at-large, assuming you want one person that's going to be there for the whole time for continuity purposes, which I think is admirable, that's going to be a different representation sort of criteria than the nonprofit, for example, where we're picking an entity, and in theory, they could select a different representative to attend on a monthly basis. I mean, I don't think that's wrong, it's just different. So I was thinking along those kinds of lines to hopefully make the retention process as lengthy as possible, if you get my drift.
Okay, those are good points. Let's see if staff wants to address any of that. Jonathan?
Yes, in past staff reports, we've made it clear that it's a multi-year process, possibly going out to 2025. And we've talked about that the meetings are expected to be at least once a month, every month until it's adopted. So folks that are applying and folks that are being nominated at commissions have that in mind. As for the nonprofit, it's our expectation that the nonprofit selects one member for continuity and that it's not changing on a month-to-month basis. And then to the final point about folks falling out, that's something that we've talked about in our staff meetings, but we haven't had a process created yet to address that specific concern.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's several good points there, David. Appreciate your time on that. That's good. Okay, other public comments?
Yes, Mayor Anderson, we have Tess Olson joining us now.
Hi, Tess Olson.
Hi.
Live on Moraga Road. I keep forgetting to say that every time I speak, so that I add it here. And I noticed for the lottery, potentially doubling the amount of entries that Black, Indigenous, and other people of color are awarded, which I think is great. Wanted to voice support for that. But also, it also says just in general, reaching out to underrepresented communities specifically. And I'm wondering if there's been any thought about like other underrepresented communities specifically, because there's people of color are specifically named, but obviously there are other underrepresented communities like queer and trans people, differently abled people, et cetera, et cetera. So just wondering if there would be any thought invested into that as well.
Okay, let's see if we can get an answer to the question. Renata?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. We are in the process of developing a very, very comprehensive contact list. So not beyond the stakeholder list, which has broad categories of stakeholders. We want to identify specific groups and individuals who are interested and want to be engaged and invite them regularly to contribute. So yes, we are reaching out to organizations that work with folks with developmental disabilities. We'll be reaching out to the LGBTQ community. We're trying to cast as wide of a net as possible. So if you want to reach out to us directly with any suggestions of folks, organizations, or if anyone does, we have an email specific for the general plan now, which is generalplan@lovelafayette.org. So please send your recommendations our way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Olson. Appreciate your comments. Good question. Okay, next public comment.
Okay, Mayor Anderson, no more public comment at this time.
All right, so with that, I'll bring it back to the council. I think we've gone through the questions that needed to be addressed. Staff, have you got direction on what you're looking for? Okay, I got heads nodding.
Yes.
All right, so, okay. So I guess we'll simply have a vote on the recommendations that we've made. I don't think we have to actually restate them. I think staff understands the direction we're giving, but we need to have a vote to make Mala happy. I mean, I want to make Mala happy.
And a motion, Mayor Anderson.
Well, we're going to get a motion too. We're the whole thing.
Or I'll
Okay.
take a stab at the motion.
Go right ahead, Vice Mayor
Okay.
Candel.
I make a motion to confirm the GPAC composition and recruitment and selection process that we spoke about, to also designate a city council liaison and alternate to GPAC, and authorize the city manager execute a professional services agreement with ESA for the housing element CEQA document with Fares and Purse as the traffic consultant, not to exceed $20,000 over the existing fund.
Pretty good.
Thanks.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All righty. Any discussion? Staff, you're okay with the motion? Your heads are nodding once again. Good. Okay. So we'll have a voice vote. Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Candel.
Aye.
And I'm a yes. So it's 4 yeses and 1 absent. And I thank you for the very good report. It was well done and a good presentation. So Jonathan, Renata, thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you, council members.
Okay. With that, we will move on to item 12A, and this is
Mike.
Yes, Vice Mayor Candel.
So
Go ahead.
so the matter about the rock garden, can we possibly pull it forward so Adam can go to bed?
Okay, well then we'll have to modify the agenda.
Yes.
So you're okay. So the request is to move item 15C up, and we take that before item 12A. Is that the motion you want to make?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all right, quick voice vote. Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Candel.
Aye.
And I'm a yes. So with that, we will move to what's on the agenda as item 15C. And this is the request to place Black and Indigenous people of color rock garden created by Adam Dolberg next to the Jennifer Russell building at the Lafayette Community Center. So I don't know if Adam is still up. I know that this item was considered by the recommendation is to send it to the Public Art Committee, but they have already taken a look at this. So I don't know if there's any information, Ruth, that you can give us about that process.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. The Public Art Committee did consider this request this afternoon and unanimously recommends to the City Council that the installation be relocated to the community center. There were some comments, and I would like to share them with you. They would like the program to be a 2-year program, just given the kind of materials used. Their concern was maintenance and upkeep, and felt that suggested to the council that this be a 2-year program and that we enter into a simple agreement with Adam as the artist, just outlining what our responsibilities were, what his responsibilities are, and just making sure that we will be taking care of the installation for a 2-year period. Of course, that can be extended beyond that. There was always a hope that we didn't need messages like this in 2 years, but they were very supportive of Adam's installation. There was also some concern and mention of vandalism and of the fact that these rocks were pretty close to the windows of the Jennifer Russell building. I did indicate to them that the matter would need to go after your action today, Jonathan Katayanagi and I will work with the Parks, Trails and Recreation Commission to identify the most suitable location for the installation. We believe that it is where it is proposed today, but we would really like feedback from that commission as well. And that's my update.
Okay, so is Adam available to us? Is he gonna come on?
Yes, Adam is on the call. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, good.
No video though, but that's okay.
That's fine. So I just wanted to get Adam's perspective on this and make sure that we understand how he feels about the recommendation that we have in front of us.
We can't hear
Now
you.
we have a
There
video.
we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. We we lost you for a second. How do you feel about a 2-year contract and monitoring the site?
I would be okay with monitoring the site for 2 years.
Okay. And do you have any concerns about what has been proposed, or you're okay with it?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, good. So let me see if there's any questions from council members of you as the artist about the situation. Are there any questions for Adam? Councilmember Geringer.
Well, I don't know that it's a question for Adam, but Adam, thank you for, first of all, bringing this project forward, and then also for your patience in working through our city processes. You're going to learn a lot about how we go through our systems and our various committees. And so I guess for staff, it's making sure that Adam is available and has the opportunity to do the presentation to the Parks, Trails and Rec Commission when that becomes available. But thank you, Adam, for bringing this forward. And I'm glad that Vice Mayor Kandel and you got together and worked a solution to help make sure that your art installation and the message that you're conveying with it has a permanent home, or a 2-year at least home at the community center.
Thank you.
Are there comments? Councilmember Bliss?
Yeah, just a brief comment. Adam, just want to, first of all, thank you for your leadership on this, and thank you for being available the night before the first day of school to talk with us about it. It really means so much to see somebody like you stepping up and doing this work for our community. As you've seen, 2020 has been a bit of a doozy of a year, and the more we get into it, the more it's clear that it's going to take younger people like you to help lead us forward in the years to come. And so it's really inspiring to see your work on this. I want to thank you for the work and for coming to council to talk about, and also thank you, Vice Mayor Kandel, for your partnership with Adam, with his family, and helping to make this tonight's discussion possible. So totally in support of the recommendation as when we get to it.
Okay, Vice Mayor Kandel.
Yes, thank you for your patience. We got this. No, we're not too far. We're good. We're getting close. Have fun at school tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam, well, thank you for your time on this. And now you're going to be a recognized artist. So with that comes, believe it or not, a lot of stuff that's not a lot of fun to do, like meetings that you don't really want to go to. But it's just part of the process. So as you watch this develop, I think you're going to be very pleased with the final installation. We're very pleased that you're pursuing it, and it's a great concept. So we want to make sure it's done correctly. A lot of people see it, and it's something that stays there no matter what the weather or the change of political conditions. So that's why we have a little process to go through.
Thank you.
Hang on, we're going to get there. And have a whole lot of fun at school.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff. Okay, do we have any public comments on this item?
There's no public comment, Mayor Anderson.
Okay. So I'll bring it back to council. I think Vice Mayor Kandel, maybe you want to make a motion. I think
I make a motion
would
to,
be-
yeah,
Go
to
ahead.
send on the Public Arts Committee to recommendations to the Park Trail and Rec Commission, and to keep Adam involved as much as possible.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll do a quick voice vote. Well, excuse me.
Mayor
Paula,
Anderson,
go
I was just going to confirm, I believe Vice Mayor Candel's motion was basically also to, based on the criteria found in the municipal code 6-2697, approve the relocation of the art.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
It definitely included that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So do you accept the modification of the motion there, Councilmember Bliss?
I do.
Well, Candell, it's your motion. Seconder, do you accept the modifications?
I do.
Okay, excellent. We'll call it the roll call vote. Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Candell.
Aye.
And enthusiastic yes from me. Great installation. Boy, that guy's gonna learn a lot about bureaucracy real fast. So that's great. Okay, so with that, we'll go back to the agenda and we're on item 12A. And this is vacating excess public rights adjacent to Mount Diablo Court, in addition to a purchase and sale agreement with the Blodgetts for the vacated land following a 30-day waiting period. Mr. Moran.
Well, good evening, Council. I'm going to try and share my screen here. And Jeff, do I have that availability?
Yes, you should. It should be the green button right at the bottom.
That's what I did. Let's see.
Let me see. Where it says share screen with an arrow. There you go.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Council. The item before you is a remnant of excess public right-of-way. And on my screen here is, and yours I hope, is Mount Diablo Boulevard, State Route 24, Mount Diablo Court. This is the very east end of town. This is the, just to the left of this blue hashing is the cemetery. And the blue hashing is this excess right-of-way that we've had for years. And likely the reason we had it is Mount Diablo Boulevard was a freeway at one time. We didn't have Highway 24. And an off-ramp or a turn-off off the freeway was actually Old Tunnel Road, which followed the alignment of Mount Diablo Court and then connected down here. When the freeway was built, it shifted it over to here to connect with Old Tunnel Road. And Mount Diablo Court was constructed and they teed it off rather than cutting this corner. So we have this excess right-of-way here. Several years ago, as I'm sure you're aware and you read in my staff report, East Bay Mud contacted the city and they needed a new pumping station. And this area here, or the top part or the northern part of that blue hashing, was traded to East Bay Mud. As a result of that, they have a pumping station here now, and we have public parking just east of the Ace Hardware store. So we got their old site of their old pumping station that was converted into a public parking facility for the city. So that leaves this kind of blue remnant here, a triangular shaped piece of property that is now south of the East Bay pumping station and north of the Blodgett property, the flooring store there. It's been there for decades. East Bay Mud ended up with, I think, about 9,400 square feet for their facility. About just under 5,800 square feet is left. As you can see, it's kind of just squeezed between these two properties. We don't need that property for street use or pedestrian use. We will still have Mount Diablo Court. We will still have a walkway facility or width and utility easements. So when it was realized this remnant was left, I believe several years ago, discussions were had between the Blodgetts, who have honestly been using this as sort of parking for their store. But they are interested in purchasing this and kind of formalizing that use. And the city does not have use of this for, at least for purposes of vehicles or pedestrian. So that leaves this remnant in a different form here. Turn that over for you. Of 5,786 square feet that is proposed to sell to the Blodgetts. We entered into an appraisal, shared the cost between the Blodgett and the city. This was appraised at just $26,000. I'll speak to that in a minute, but we did share that cost with the anticipation of arriving at a fair market value for this remnant of land. So that land was appraised based on it being less than 7,500 square feet, which is the zoning to build in this region of Lafayette. And that is why it's less per square foot than, for example, if you were to buy this and you could construct multifamily housing. So just finally, to kind of end my report, staff's recommendation is that we sell this to the Blodgetts because it is a smaller area. It's not a formal lot right now. It's still excess right of way. If it were to be converted to a lot, it would need a variance to build. Our general plan does recommend combining smaller and odd shaped lots with other lots so that they would be fully conforming should they be developed in the future. So for those reasons, staff made the recommendation to vacate this right away and sell it to the Blodgetts with the purchase and sale agreement that is attached to my staff report, which also requires the resolution attached to my staff report to be accepted as well. I will just end here because you may have some public comment on this. I had at least a couple public comments that were included with my staff report because I received them before it was even put out to the public. And then I know we've had some other comments come in via email. And for both sides, both to support staff's recommendation and to say that, hey, this really isn't that small of a lot. You could build 5 multifamily units on this lot if the city would just make it a lot, and if they would pass a variance to allow a smaller kind of odd shaped lot to be built. So, and obviously if this were a lot that you could build multifamily housing on, the value of the property would be more than the $26,000 that the appraisal came back at. So it was appraised at that value just because of the use or lack of use, if you will. The better use, staff believes, is to combine it with its adjacent property. So that's kind of the conclusion of my talk. I will just, you may probably all are all aware, I just wanted to pull up the Google map. You can see this is the new pumping station, this is the Blodgett, and this triangle in between is being used currently for parking and for storage back here, but that's the triangular shaped excess public right of way that staff is recommending we vacate via a resolution and a purchase and sale agreement to the Blodgetts following a 30-day waiting period in case any utilities believe they have anything back here. And just a quick update on that, I've heard back from at least a couple, and we don't anticipate that there are any utilities. We believe they're all here. There's a PG&E vault here, for example, but that walkway along this frontage would stay public right away along with the street. So unless there's something back here that we don't know about, we don't anticipate a utility having an easement here. But per the law, basically, and the requirements of going through this excess right away, I have reached out to the utilities, and they have a 30-day period from the time that we would pass the resolution to vacate. And I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any questions for staff? Michael, can you take your display down? Like, there you go. I can't see anything.
Yes.
All right, any questions for staff? All right, do we have any public comments on this item?
Yes, we do have some public comment, Mayor Anderson. I thought we were going to have more, so let me remind people that if you do want to comment on this item, to please use the raise hand function now, or if you're on a telephone, *9. But we do have, I think, Cheryl McDonald is coming up next. And oops, let me see there. Here she comes. Okay. Sherry, you are in.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm learning it. So I wanted to call in to support staff's position that this go to the Blodgett's property. So that, you know, it just seems like the right thing to do. It's part of the general plan. And I read about the small odd shaped property as well, and it's going to the other larger parcel that adjoins it. So I just wanted to call and support staff's position that this be sold to the Blodgett family. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker? All right, Ms. McDonald, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it. Next public comment.
All right, we have public comment from Larry Blodgett, who we did and now we don't. Okay, Larry Blodgett, if you do want to, there you go. Wait, what's going on?
I moved him in, Jeff, sorry.
Oh, okay, all right, we'll talk about that. Thank you. Hey, Larry, you are in, so go ahead. Mr. Blodgett, you are in the meeting, so go ahead and unmute. Well, you look like you're unmuted, so go ahead and speak. Turn on your video if you'd like. Okay, Mayor Anderson, would you like us to continue or give
Yeah,
Larry
let's go ahead into the next public comment, and maybe Mr. Blodgett can come in later.
All right, we don't have any other public comment at this time.
Okay, well then, if we don't have any other public comment, and we can't get Mr. Blodgett to come through.
He's in. I'm not sure what's going on. All right, well, I'll tell you what, let's move him back, and if he comes back in, I will let you know.
Okay, so we will then bring it back to council for discussion and action. Councilmember Bliss. Councilmember Bliss, you are muted.
Oh, sorry, we've got two Larry Blodgetts now both of them are attending the meeting. So.
Okay.
I see one.
Mr. Blodgett.
Yes.
Yes.
I apologize.
You're on.
When the system was rebooted, it sent my laptop into some other space, I guess. My apologies. I'm not sure what I may have missed. I'm assuming you all have read the letter that I submitted and gave a synopsis of the history of how we came to use that property. I would like to add, the staff did a very thorough report. The appraisal company was not selected by us. They were selected by city staff. The company is well-known and has done a lot of appraisals. So I know that there's been a lot of raised eyebrows as to what the valuation is, but I had nothing to do with that. I was surprised, as many people were. That notwithstanding, the city didn't even have deed on this property until East Bay Mud came calling and asking to do the land swap. And it was held up in title through the whole process. So it was kind of apparently no man's land. It was originally state property that had been used through eminent domain to build the freeway off-ramp. Became the county's, and when the city incorporated, was supposed to have been transferred to the city. Our current use is mixed use with the retail store, warehouse, or offices, and there is 2 residential units that are upstairs. It was originally built to my grandfather's home. So we're fulfilling some housing needs right off the get-go, in addition to providing home furnishing to our residents. We've been maintaining it for we've been in that building for 50 years. We planted trees along the boulevard, maintained them, planted flowers. We dished up the soil all at our own expense. That doesn't necessarily make it appropriate, but I inherited the property when my parents passed away in 13 and 14. And the configuration it's in now is as I know it as a child. So I appreciate your careful consideration of this.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? All right, Mr. Blodgett, thank you very much. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
comments. Councilmember Bliss, any thoughts?
Yeah, as I was about to say, thank you to staff for the clear report, and to Cheryl and Mr. Blodgett for chiming in as well. I think, both for the reasons that this seemed to be something with strong historical basis and also is aligned with the general plan, and the idea of trying to assemble smaller parcels with larger ones. I'm prepared to make a motion to move the recommendation from staff on this.
Okay, any other comments or questions? So why don't you make the motion and let's see what happens.
Sure. So I move that we adopt resolution 2020-34, authorizing staff to vacate the excess public right of way, and also authorize the city manager to enter into the attached purchase and sale agreement with the Blodgetts for the vacated land following a 30-day waiting period.
Do I have a
And
second?
I second.
Excellent. All right, everyone's got heads nodding, so let's do a quick vote. Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Candell.
Aye.
And I say yes also, so it's 4 yeses, 1 absent, and the motion passes. So thank you for a good report there, Michael. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And thank you. And we'll move on to item 12B. Tracy Robinson, update on potential business license program. There she is.
Hello, members of the council. Good evening. I'm going to keep this very short. Basically, this staff report is just responsive to a question that was asked at a previous council member, I believe by Council Member Geringer, regarding business licenses and what the process for that would be, and what would be involved. So I'm just going to point out a couple things and then I'll take questions. So a business license differs from a business tax in that a business license is generally just a flat fee. It does not have to be voted on by the residents of the city. Basically, I think it was really just more to be used. I think the reason that Councilmember Geringer asked it was for us to get a more accurate representation of all of the businesses that exist within Lafayette versus maybe some that don't always, that aren't members of the chamber. And I know that listening to the item on the general plan, we're trying to be as broad as possible and making sure that all businesses are representative. So this could potentially give us another cohort. So I just reached out to Arinda, who has recently implemented a business registration, let's call it. And I believe that their fee is 30, something on the order of $35 a year annually. The whole process is really run by a third party, so there really would not be any impact on staff resources. And this would apply, for example, in Arinda, it applies to all businesses that do $10,000 a year or more in revenue within the city. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. If you have questions about this, I know that we did get some public comment, and there may be some people waiting that, now may or may not be the time to impose any additional, it's not a tax, but any fees on business, because businesses are certainly suffering and we are sensitive to that. So again, it was just meant to be responsive to a request to just bring up the idea and let you talk about it.
Okay, Tracy, thank you for that. Councilmember Geringer?
So I don't really have questions, and so I don't know if we want to wait for public comment, but I did have a couple of comments. And thank you, Tracy, for doing the research. And we had a couple of conversations to clarify, you know, when I asked about business license fees, it was also partly in context of a lot of our residents think that the city approves or issues business permits or a business license. And so when I was asked this question related to a couple of businesses over the last couple of years that have ultimately ended up being controversial, that our residents just don't know that we don't know until the businesses come. It's really the businesses have the interaction with the landlords or, you know, in their homes. And so that was part of the impetus to bring up the discussion. It was also about having a sense of, we know that not every business is in the Chamber of Commerce, in our fabulous Chamber of Commerce, but for whatever reason, they're not in that. And so I appreciate having the information come forward. I reached out to Jay Lifson yesterday, and his public comment was sent out to council and is in the record for, you know, this item. And he asked some great questions. He also talked about, we used to have a business license fee. And interestingly, we as a city and this is Jay and I having a conversation, so hopefully I have this history correct, but the council at that time decided during the Great Recession, so how many ever years ago now, to end that program. And so I want it to be very clear that at this evening, I absolutely did not bring this forward to figure out a way to charge fees on businesses during the pandemic, but did want us to have the information and the background. One of the things that also came out of this is that Jay pointed out, and I remember Chief Aldrich speaking to a program called Zone Haven, and Duncan Siebert and the chief and Jay Lifson and his team at the chamber have actually worked together to already begin to develop a list of businesses. So not just residents, but going through and pulling county business license information. And so we do have a list, and he sent that over to us. I don't know if it got into the public record, but I'll make sure that we get that through the Zone Haven. So I want to thank Duncan Siebert from CERT, our chief of police, and the chamber for doing this work already. I do think that this is an opportunity for us to potentially look at this in the future whenever we have a recovery and our businesses are, you know, back to a strong place. One of the other benefits of this is that it also helps businesses to sort of have a checklist. And so it's an information tool for us. It's an information tool for our businesses as they begin to open. But I would not want tonight to entertain that, but I think it's a good information and item that we can look at as we go forward, and how it incorporates into economic development in our general plan or economic prosperity. It's another item, if you will, to have there as we move forward. So Tracy, thank you for doing the research, and then thanks to all the others who work on behalf of our businesses. And thank you to our businesses. I certainly did not want to scare anybody into thinking that I was moving to charge money right now.
Okay, are there any questions of Tracy in regards to this? Vice Mayor Candell.
Thank you. Yeah, great report. Teresa, thank you. I totally believe that was not your intent, and agree with that. But on the flip side, you know, maybe if we'd had this, we could have reached more businesses for us helping them get the the loans, right? And so it can work both ways. And so when or if we ever do that, we have to pitch it to them too, that hopefully they'll be getting more services from us, you know, much in excess of the $35. So hopefully that'll work. So the Zone Haven, do we have access, like, could we have used it to contact them for our small business programs and getting Casey Elliott to help them apply for the loans? What's our access in there?
I've had limited access to Zone Haven. I tested it out, I will admit, a couple of months ago, and they did not have all the information about all our businesses. Since then, they may have added to the program. And on my to-do list is to make sure I get an updated link to Zone Haven, and I'll send it out to council tomorrow, or as soon as I can get it.
Okay, Councilmember Bliss, any questions for Tracy?
No questions, just appreciate the work by staff on this, and it's a great report, very helpful background, and entirely agree with what's been said already, which is that this could potentially be a great tool for the city at some point, but not at this present time. Thanks.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor Anderson, no public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, I'll take it from the conversation that we appreciate the report back from Tracy, but there's really no action for us at this point. And maybe in the future, this is something to be looked at. Sounds like the city manager will be getting us some information on Zone Haven. So that may help us in the near term. But I think we've basically got good information about what we can do in the future as it comes to business identification and service. So Tracy, thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, unless there's any other comment, we'll move on to city manager's update. Or actually, council members report on activities and consideration of matters the council members wish to initiate for placement on a future agenda. Any reports out? Okay, well, I'll just note that at the mayor's conference last week, I guess it was, there was a letter that was sent to the Housing Methodology Committee at ABAG, which basically was signed by the whole mayor's conference, requesting that they use the Plan Bay Area 2050 as the basis for housing allocation, and not the alternative, which would have allocated housing to places where housing already exists at the proportion of the housing that that area has. And I think what we've heard is that there is some support from this from other cities. The main issue is that you would have jobs related to housing for the first time, cut down on transportation requirements for people to get to work, cut down on commute hours, and put a lot of housing really where the jobs actually are. So hopefully we'll see some progress on that in the next few weeks from the Housing Methodology Committee. Okay, without any other reports or requests, we'll move to the city manager's update. Mr. Vatsa.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to provide the council with an update on the Business Assistance Program. As you are aware, the program started in April. We hired Townsend Public Affairs to assist. To date, we have spent in the last 4.5 months, $45,000. And LBA, or the Lafayette Business Assistance Program, has so far assisted 90 local businesses, of them 10 are nonprofits, and were able to secure 1.5 or close to $1.6 million in federal funding. At this point in time, many of the federal funding programs have closed their application period. The number of calls that we are receiving has also slowed down, and the focus is really on follow-up rather than new applications. In Washington, Congress has not yet reached a deal on the next on the Phase 4 coronavirus relief package. Negotiations have stalled. We do not expect a package this week. It may be forthcoming in the weeks to come. Given these conditions, I have temporarily suspended the business assistance program in that we are not paying Townsend for the second half of August. We will wait to see what happens in the next round. And if that next round has a really robust assistance package for our businesses, and that we can actually serve our businesses by helping them, we will certainly resuscitate the program. But as of now, I do not see the need to keep the program going until we wait to hear from Washington, D.C. And it really depends. The next steps depend on what's in the new relief package and whether it will most directly benefit our businesses. So I just wanted to let you know that there is a temporary suspension of the business assistance program. I'm working with Townsend to see if they will still accept those occasional calls during the rest of the month, but we will wait to see what happens in DC to proceed. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the city manager? All right. Maroop, any other reports?
No.
Okay, with that, we go to feedback from the July 30th town hall meeting, scope and authority of task force and next step.
We kind of did that.
Well, I have it down as an item number 2 on 15C, 15C.2.
Okay, I will take that quickly unless Teresa wants to grab it too. Feedback was excellent. 160 people attended. We had great speakers. According to my children and all my children's friends, Tiffany is a rock star and really did a nice job. She was excellent, super professional. I think you were all there, so you heard. So the next steps, we're meeting with her on Friday, and so I don't really have anything. So okay. I'm anticipating a good, I have a lot more hopefully next time.
Okay, sounds fine. Councilmember Geringer.
I just want to, and I know that Vice Mayor Kendall absolutely agree on the rock star. I just want to make sure that for the record, Vice Mayor Kendall, in her role as chair, will be meeting with Tiffany on Friday.
Oh, thank you.
Our next meeting of the task force, where we will, all be together, will be on August 20th, where Tiffany, who will have summarized the report, meet with the city manager and Vice Mayor Kendall and Jennifer, who has just popped in here, Wakeman, and we'll develop a report for discussion by the task force at the meeting on the 20th.
Yes.
Okay. Jennifer, do you have any comments you want to make, or?
I just wanted to add that I haven't spoken with Tiffany on the final details, but our plan is to, on Friday, review the synthesis of the stories that were provided in the event and in written format. And then with that information, forming some questions to help the task force work through identification of an objective, a task force name, and then starting to lay the groundwork for an action plan for this task force.
Okay, and just to restate, I think what Councilmember Geringer was saying, that is not a public meeting. That is simply a
Correct.
meeting
Just
that
a
Vice
working
Mayor
meeting.
Kendall
Yes.
and staff will be meeting with our consultant. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
All right. Other thoughts or comments? Are there any public comments?
No hands raised at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Bliss?
Yeah, I just want to quickly say thanks to everybody it was a great evening. Thanks to Tiffany for her work. It was great to have a chance to chat with her in advance and help her get her assistance in kind of framing my opening remarks. That was very thoughtful and incredibly helpful. But really, thank you to Vice Mayor Kendall Council Member Geringer and Council Member Burks for their leadership on this, and all the work that's going on, on the staff level as well. I thought it was a great night for the city. And one of the themes I thought was really important, I just want to kind of lift up just for us to kind of bear in mind as we go forward, is there was a real strong sense of the way that the issues of racial equity and diversity and inclusion really connect to so many things that we do as policymakers for the city: housing, transportation, public space, support for businesses. And I think that's something that we can really take inspiration from over the next several months and beyond. So I really appreciated the content of the meeting and the way that it spoke to so many of the things that we work on as a council and as a city government as a whole. So looking forward to hearing about next steps from the task force and supporting it however I can.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, any other comments on this item? All right, well, with that, we are at adjourn. And Councilmember Bliss, I think we've been adjourning in memory of those who have passed away from the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Anderson. It's the latest count as of this morning for Contra Costa County is 149 deaths. And if it's okay, if you'll indulge me, I wonder if we could, I appreciate your mentioning, I wonder if it's okay with everyone if we could sort of expand the adjournment sentiment to include not just in memory of the 149 that have passed away, but also sending our best wishes to the 99 people that are currently hospitalized with COVID. We've all seen that the ravages of the pandemic have been so expansive, and I want to not only honor those that we've lost from our communities, but also send as a council our best wishes to those who are hospitalized tonight with COVID-19. So.
Well stated. Thank you very much for that. So we will adjourn with those good thoughts in mind and hope for a better future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.